Hello, my name is Marc Atas. I'm an attorney licensed to practice law in the state of Maryland. I've been practicing since 1980, approximately 37 years, and my main area of practice is in the area of personal injury accidents, auto accidents, and workers' compensation. My office is located at 6 East Mulberry Street in Baltimore, Maryland, 21202. My office phone number is 410-752-4878, and my 800 number is 800-749-4878. Today we're going to talk about valuing a personal injury or auto accident case. What is the value of my case is typically what clients will ask me. A lot of times they will ask me that in the first conversation I have with them. And I always give them the same answer, which is, it's impossible to tell you what the value of your case is on day one. There are so many factors that go into that, most of which have not even occurred yet. Any lawyer that tells you that he can value your case now on the day you're talking to him over the phone before he's met you or in the first interview when he's met you is basically lying to you, because there really is no way to put a value on the case until everything is done, all of the information is in. In addition, I think that for a lawyer, clients will say, well, you've handled this case, hundreds of times, surely you can tell me what it's valued. And I tell them the same thing, which is every case is different, every case has a different set of facts, and it would just not be fair to them to just make up some value. And that based upon that, I'm not going to do that, because I'm going to treat each case as separate. I'm going to give its due. I'm going to make sure I get all the facts together so that I can present their case in the light most favorable to them getting the fairest settlement possible. Now, what are the factors that make this such a complicated process? Well, there are many, so let me just go over the ones that I can think of. And those include the following. First one, who are you? Who is the client? Are they male, female? How far did they go in school? Do they have a criminal record? Anything that makes them look less than the next person that a jury is going to see is going to affect the value of the case. Whenever you're asking a judge or jury for money, you have to present your case in such a way that the jury likes the person that's there who's injured and who's asking for something from them. If a jury doesn't like you, they're probably not going to award you anything. If a jury does like you, then they're going to take care of you. So it's important that when you testify, that you give a good presentation, that you dress well, that you answer the questions cooperatively, that you not give the other lawyer a hard time, that you not get in any argument with anybody, that you not refuse to answer any questions, because anytime you do that, that can affect the value of the case. In a case that's in litigation and where the other lawyer takes your deposition, if you give him a hard time, then that lawyer is going to be more likely to think that your case is going to be worth less than you might think, hoping to take you in front of a jury and having a jury not like you and therefore giving you little or no money. So it's extremely important that at all times that you put on your best face, that you give a good deposition, that anytime you have any interaction with the other side, if you're giving a statement to the insurance company, that you come off like a knowledgeable person who's aware of the facts and who in front of a jury is going to make a good impression. The second factor that we have to always look at is, what type of injuries did you have? Did you have any broken bones? Did you have any cuts? Did you have any bruises? Did you have any other visible signs of injuries? Did you have any x-rays that showed a broken bone? Did you have an MRI that showed a herniated disc? Or were all of those tests normal and you had no physical signs of injuries, meaning there were no cuts, no bruises, no blood, and no broken bones? Those cases are obviously worth less than if you have any of those, because it's a lot easier for us to prove that in fact you were actually injured. Unfortunately, when you go into a personal injury or car accident case, juries tend to be very skeptical of the people that are making claims, and our job is to overcome that skepticism by overwhelming evidence indicating that you were injured. So the more objective signs of injury, meaning where we can actually prove that you were injured from a document or from a MRI or test or just from some pictures showing the injury, is a lot more effective than you just complaining my neck or back hurts. Unfortunately, most of the cases involved in these personal injury or car accident cases are neck or back injuries where there are no objective, meaning actual signs of injury like an x-ray showing an injury or a broken bone. And then we have to rely on the medical records. Sometimes the examination by the doctor can show objective signs of injury, meaning something we can prove you're injured, like spasm. And then we would call other objective injuries just showing a limited range of motion, meaning I can't bend as far, or something like that. However, juries are more skeptical in cases where all of the tests are basically normal, except that you're complaining, you're saying it hurts, and when you say it hurts, you're unable to do a certain activity. And that's all we have to prove the case. So that can affect the value of the case. Obviously, the length of treatment can affect the value of the case. But that comes with some provisos. So the longer you treat in theory, the more your case should be worth, because when we're asking for pain and suffering, if your pain and suffering only lasted a week, then obviously that case should not be worth as much as if we're asking for pain and suffering for 4 years. On the other hand, if the accident's relatively minor, there's not a lot of damage, and all the tests show is normal, and all you're doing is complaining about your neck and back, and then you treat it for 4 years and miss 3 months of work, that's going to significantly reduce the value of your case because it's going to look like you're exaggerating. So while length of treatment's important, like if you have a fractured bone or you had surgery and you're out of work for a year, that's going to be a lot more believable to a jury than if you have some minor injury that's less easy to prove by an x-ray. So that can affect the value of the case. The next thing that can affect the value of the case is how much damage there is to your car. Why is that? The insurance industry has become very good at arguing that the amount of damage directly reflects on whether someone's injured or not. Their argument is, hey judge, look at these pictures. Hey jury, look at these pictures. There's hardly any damage here, or I only see a scratch, or there's a small dent here, but this person's got $10,000 in medical treatment and treated for 6 months. This doesn't seem consistent with the damage to the car in this particular case. And that can be very persuasive, and because of that, it affects the value of your case. The only way to combat that is with the following argument, which doesn't always hold water, which is cars are made today in order to accept more of an impact. And in fact, what happens is if a car dents, then under the laws of physics, all of the energy from the impact goes into the car and causes the car to dent and crumble and everything else. If in fact the car doesn't crumble and there's still energy from the impact and it didn't go into crushing the car, then that energy gets transferred into the passenger that's in the car, and therefore the accident may be more severe to that particular person because there wasn't enough damage and because the car sustained the impact. That's why cars are not made like tanks so that there's no crumbling, because they can make cars that would take less damage, but when they do that, the people inside are more likely to be injured. If you can convince the judge or jury of that, then it's more likely than not you get a fair verdict. But more often than not, those pictures with little or no damage are very persuasive. The next thing that affects the value of your case is where the accident happened. Why does that matter? Well, judges and juries are very different depending on where they're from. In Maryland, judges and juries, let's say in Baltimore City and Prince George's County, tend to be a lot more liberal than some of the juries in the Western Maryland or on the Eastern Shore. You're just dealing with different people, and their feelings on the value of money or people's filing claims can be very different from people who live in the city. Or while one jury may think, $1,000 is a lot of money, another juror may think that that's nothing at all. And it typically runs by county or areas of the state. So If your accident happened in Baltimore City or Prince George's County, the chances are it's with the same injuries, same property damage, everything's the same except where it happened. It's going to be worth more in those two jurisdictions than it may be in the rest of the state of Maryland. I'm sure that's true in every state, so it does matter where it happened. It also matters who's hearing the case. So certain judges give more money than other judges, certain juries give more money than other judges. That can affect it. So if we know what judge is going to be hearing a case on a certain day, that will affect the value of the case. The next thing that can affect the value of the case is whether you've ever had another claim before. If you've never had another claim, that's going to be extremely helpful in your case. Juries tend to not like personal injury claims and auto accident claims, and sometimes I almost feel like there's a presumption that my client is not really injured in the case, and my job as the lawyer is to overcome that presumption and prove that we're the exception, this person is not faking, and that they were actually injured in the accident. And what can significantly affect that is prior injuries. If you've never made a prior injury before, the jury's more likely to believe you more often than not than if you've had 10 other claims before. Once you start having more than 1 or 2 claims, the jury's going to start wondering what's going on. I've never been involved in a claim. Why has this person had 10 claims? Either they're bad drivers and they'll blame the accident on you even when you're not at fault, or every time you're in an accident, you run to the doctor. You know, I've been in 10 other accidents. I've never run to the doctor. Why does this person keep running to the doctor other than they're trying to get money out of the case? So the more accidents you have, even though they're not your fault, the more likely that is to affect the value of the case. And that's something I have to take into consideration when I'm looking at the value of the case. The next thing that affects the value of the case is whether you have a criminal record or not. Unfortunately, it shouldn't matter, meaning if you have a criminal record or not, all the jury should look at is, you know, what happened in the case. But that isn't the way human nature is. So if they think, you know, this person's got a conviction for armed robbery and for murder or whatever, they're going to be less likely to feel sorry for that person and award them money than if the person has no prior record. So that can affect the value of the case. The age of the client can affect the value of the case. The sex of the client can affect the value of the case. Whether someone's, you know, very attractive can affect the value of the case. Juries look at all of that. In addition, is there scarring or bruising? That's going to affect the value of the case. If, you know, you have an ugly scar there, obviously your case is going to be worth a lot more than if there's nothing there. If you have pictures from around the time of the accident that show bruising, scarring, blood, whatever, those things are going to affect the value of the case. If you don't have them, if you don't have the pictures but you actually have them, and the insurance adjuster or the judge and jury read about them in a medical report or hear them from a doctor but don't see the pictures, that will adversely affect the value of the case. Those pictures can be worth, you know, 2-3 times what the case would normally be worth just because you have those pictures, because they can have an impact on the jury. How long the treatment lasted is obviously important, as in whether you missed any time from work. So if it's a serious accident, you missed a lot of time from work, that's going to help bolster your story. If you did miss a lot of time from work and you had a serious accident, that may make you even look more credible because you did your best to go back. On the other hand, the lawyer may argue, well, if you were hurt so badly, why were you working? In addition, the other things that typically affect the value of the case are whether your testimony is consistent with the medical records. If it is, great. If it isn't, then that's going to affect the value of the case. So your lawyer has the job of looking at all of those factors, and then based upon the medical expenses that you have, because you're entitled to get reimbursed for your medical expenses in the past and as projected in the future, your lost wages in the past and in the future, how it affected your marriage if you're married, and that's called a loss of consortium claim in Maryland. And then there's an award for pain and suffering. Well, the jury or judge can award for any of those or none of those. If you've had medical treatment but they don't like the doctors you went, or they think the treatment was excessive, or if you didn't keep your appointments, meaning You were supposed to go to therapy 3 times a week, but you only went once every other week. That's going to affect the value of your case. As the lawyer, I have to look at all of those factors in order to evaluate the case. And once I do that, and obviously I need all of that information before I can do that. Once I do that, I'll put a value in my mind based upon my experiences, meaning, while this may be your first accident, it's obviously not mine. I've been doing this for 35 years. I haven't tried every one of those 35 years worth of cases, but I've tried many of them. And when I try those cases, I know after they're over what kind of results I get. I then get a chance to talk to the jury and find out what affected their decisions. In addition, I've settled zillions of cases over the years, thousands of them. And I know what insurance companies pay for and what they won't pay for. So that based upon my trial experience and based upon my experience in settling cases, I know what I can get out of a case and I know what I can't get out of a case. And I know what the insurance companies look at, I know what the adjusters look at, therefore I have to look at those things. Based upon all of that, I will then come to an evaluation. I will then submit my demand to the insurance company with a demand letter explaining all of this to them as to why I'm making the demand I am, and then they'll come back and we'll negotiate. If we can't reach a figure that seems fair to me, I will take that figure back to the client, and ultimately it's the client's decision as to whether that offer is acceptable or not. If it's not acceptable, then the case will be tried in front of either a judge or jury, and then they will decide, the judge or jury, what the value of the case is. And that's basically how I make a determination of the value of the case and what happens when we are unable to agree on a value of the case. I want to thank you for listening. Again, my name is Marc Atas. I'm from the law office of Marc Atas and Associates. My address is 6 East Mulberry Street, Baltimore, Maryland, 21202. My phone number at my office is 410-752-4878. My 800 number is 800-749-4878. My email address is matas@ataslaw.com. That's M-A-T like Tom, A-S like Sam, at ataslaw like lawyer, L-A-W.com. All initial consultations are free. The cases are on a contingency fee, which means if there's no recovery, there's no fee. I'd appreciate if you give me a call if you have any questions. Thank you.